Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to an August 8th edition of the MSP Initiative MSP Talk. I'm going to get some housekeeping out of the way, and then we're going to get on with our special guest of the day. So stay tuned. Here we go. MSPinitiative.com. This is where everything that we do is literally in one place. So this session is being recorded. Surprise. It will be there under sessions, where every other session we've ever done is in podcast and video format. So if you're driving, podcast is probably better for you. We are doing an in-person event next week in Denver called MSP Community Minds. After 3 years of driving around America on the Channel Strong Tour, we decided to park the bus and do something a little bit more formal and educative for you. So if you're happening to not do anything next week, Monday and Tuesday in Denver, we are doing an event where we're bringing both MSPs and industry speakers from around the sandbox to do both panels and workshops for you. This event is 100% free for MSPs to register for. There is no $3.99, $4.99, $9.99 registration fee. Please join us. If you're an MSP, you do need to make it there. But other than that, this event is totally free and educational for you. And if not, well, you just have to wait for another one because we are not streaming or recording this at all. Moving on, we have our MSP block parties. We got 3 left for the rest of the year. We have the MSP Community Boat Party in conjunction with the people over at Taylor Business Group and the Big Conference. But if you happen to be in South Florida and you like mega yachts rolling down the Intercoastal in Fort Lauderdale and you're an MSP, you can join us here for free as well. This will be August 23rd. I know it's the middle of a week, but hey, what better to do on a Wednesday night in the middle of a week? But if you haven't checked out the Big Conference, Google it. Taylor Business Group Big 2023. Maybe it's something that interests you. Then we have our friends over at Kaseya and DattoCon and Kaseya Datto. They're the same company now, doing DattoCon in Miami. We're doing an event around that, just like we did in Dublin earlier in the year. So hopefully you'll join us there. Looking forward to checking the Miami box off this year. And then lastly, to round out our year is the big one in Orlando that we do. Last year is where we brought in the All-American Rejects. This year, we might be bringing in more than one recognizable band. Stay tuned. And yeah, we love to close out the year on a bang. So that'll be the one in Orlando, second week of November. We have some community offers, which are just companies that are throwing some hookups out for people in the MSP land. So check those out. And then lastly is just the industry calendar, because there's so many things going on, which we're going to talk about in a minute. This goes to the end of December, but I already had a couple of people reach out and say, hey, what's going on in 2024? So we're already starting to get that stuff into the homework there. If we're missing an event, that should be in there, just so everybody is working from the same piece of information. Go ahead and hit the event form and submit it. That is all of the housekeeping. So thank you for just giving me a little bit of time to put that through. So today's special guest on the podcast is, and we've had him on before, so I'm bringing him on again. This time I'm going to get his name right. Miles, who is, working at Kaseya, specifically with the Graphis solution, but obviously there's many products and companies underneath the Kaseya umbrella, and there'll be plenty to talk about. Miles, how you doing today, my friend?
Good, George. How are you? It's been a while since I've seen you. I think it was Philadelphia last August, which I was there for my birthday, so I remember it very specifically, and I loved your city, by the way.
You know, when it's nice outside and you're in a part of town that's like maybe a touristy spot, you feel a lot more comfortable than maybe some of the other areas, but every city has their spot. Philly's a cool place if you're hitting the right places, and like it's one of those northeast cities where there's just a lot of people in like a small area, but people forget that the country did start here. Two of the most important documents signed in the country's history came from Philadelphia, and yeah, a lot of history here. I knock people, Miles, who are like, hey, what was it, like 3 or 4 years ago? I forget what it was, right? There was an event in New Jersey, and they rented out Liberty Island. I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is so cool. I love that part of it. Like, really like thought that was awesome. And then I was heckling people, right? I was like, you're from New York and you've never been to the Statue of Liberty? Like, didn't you just come here on a field trip? Like, didn't they do this during grade school? And like all these people were like, no, I've never been. And I'm like, it's just so odd. I went to the Statue of Liberty, and I'm from Philadelphia, and it was a school field trip, but I digress. And then like my own wife was like, yeah, so I've never been to Independence Hall. I was like, what? I was like, Liberty Bell? Nope. Constitution Center? Nope. It's like, how have you lived here for your whole life? And like, it's like literally down the street from where you work. Like, I don't get it, but I guess
Well,
that came back to,
well, you'll be happy to hear I actually paid for my own hotel. I took Brian Doty the day before the conference. We did the Liberty Bell. We did all those things you just mentioned. We saw where they signed all the fancy documents. I remember specifically, I hit you up beforehand and I actually said, "Look, where do I go for a cheesesteak?" And what did you tell me? Do you remember this? This was
Tony
a while
Luke's.
ago. Sorry?
Tony Luke's is the one I recommend everyone to go to.
And so what did I do? I actually took your advice and went a little bit off keister. And I actually we grabbed one from the place in the corner, then one from the other place, and we did a taste test.
Okay.
And they were both so amazing. And I know I never thought I would ever want Cheese Whiz on a Philly cheesesteak, and now I am completely hooked.
It is definitely our specialty without question. I love people who have never been to Philadelphia and you're like, I don't like cheesesteaks. And I'm like, where are you buying your cheesesteaks? Like, and they're like, oh yeah, I just buy from the pizza guy down the street. And I was like, where do you live? Florida. I'm like, no,
Not gonna happen.
You got to have the real thing. So I think you went to Pat's and Gino's, right? Because they're across the street from each other.
Yeah, those are the two.
And you know what? Like, by the way, still pretty good. Maybe not on my like top list because like, you know, I'm from the area and we've been around, but like that they're not bad by any means. Like I love the people who get cheesesteaks from like weird places. Don't ever buy cheesesteaks from like Subway or something. That's never worked out well for you. But no, I'm really happy you enjoyed yourself. It's a great spot. If you ever are in town, we love our sports, right? So
well, I mean, you know me, I'm a big sports guy. So I mean, I would love to come out. I know you're an Eagles fan. I would love to come out and see an Eagles game because I've been doing a lot of like sporting events when I'm trying to combine like my work trips with a sporting event. Like earlier this year, I had Dallas had a freezing ice storm. So I was stuck in Denver for 2 days and I got to see the Nuggets play. And I don't usually go to sports events on my own, even though I think I'm fun company on my own. I went to the game and I went on whatever website the local one is. And I kid you not, Denver Nuggets, who are now the NBA champions, for $62. I sat third row because I didn't care who I sat with. And there was just this one lone ticket. And it was an incredible experience. So I want to get out there. I want to see Philly and I want to see a game with you though. I want to see a game with you.
But you realize that half the battle here is that you actually have to tailgate before the game, right? So you can't just walk in. There's a whole thing before that.
Of course. Oh, I mean, like we grew up like in Canada, we don't have an NFL team. So if you're on the West Coast, you supported the Seahawks because they're a 3-hour drive. And if you're on the East Coast, you supported the Buffalo Bills. And you know the world of hurt they've been in for the last 35 years. And so the Seahawks, we had our little run there, which was nice, but I could definitely throw on some Eagles green for the day or purple and come and, be a bandwagon fan for sure.
Definitely green. Don't wear purple. Ask the Vikings fans anytime they visit Philadelphia. It may not go out for them.
Okay.
And then you were actually just right before the call, you were saying how I guess they said, hey, Miles, you available to go to St. Louis or something?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been doing these MDF events. So, we really created this huge, big MDF budget this year to help partners. So, I mean, this is the stuff that we do with MDF, you do on a regular basis. So you're going to be like, yeah, Miles, I've heard about this stuff. But, with our clients, I was in Omaha, Nebraska last month because the College World Series was taking place. So they're like, can you go out there? We know you love your baseball. Go out there, talk baseball and hang out with the Omahaians. And we had a couple great days in Omaha talking baseball, watching baseball. And because of that, I guess they found out that we had an event next week, an MDF event. So they asked me a while back about going to St. Louis and never been. And we've got the box right beside the owner's suite. And supposedly the rumor is they want one of the 5 people, a couple partners and a couple of us to throw out the first pitch. And so that would be big time for me. That's like bucket list for me. So we'll see Busch Stadium next week. I'll definitely keep you posted on that.
Oh, now I need to know if this happens. I hope you didn't get bamboozled and they're like, oh no, that's not happening.
Oh, I mean, there's a very real chance. And I mean, like, Philadelphia has such a rich history. Like I would love to see a Phillies game. Like I remember growing up and loving Mitch Williams, the Wild Thing, right? Who was obviously Charlie Sheen in Major League. So, yeah. I would love to see a Phillies game. I got to go out to Chicago in June, and we sat at the. Have you ever been to the Wrigley rooftops?
I've seen them. I've been at Wrigley, but not on the rooftops.
But you know what it is, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's the apartments behind Wrigley Stadium. We rented them out for an event last month, and after you see a game like that with all you can eat, all you can drink, free ice cream, you're like, you kind of it's going to be hard to go to a regular game after that experience. I'll say that.
Listen, every town has their flavor, right? But that is a cool story. I remember the first time I went to Wrigley, it must have been maybe 2015, 2016. They had told us the story, like we did a little tour, and they told us the story, like they tried to put a fence up to block those people, didn't work, like they ended up working out a deal. I was like, that's the best way to do it. Just work out a deal. Let them rent their rooftop.
Oh, and I think now the owners have actually bought all those. That's what I heard. Like
Okay.
the owners bought all the apartments just so that they don't have to deal with anything. They're like, this is the easy way to do it. So supposedly that's
Like,
how
I'm gonna buy the whole. It's like that scene in Batman where he's like, "Sir, the pool is only for decoration only." He's like, "I just bought this hotel." Puts a check in the guy's. So yeah, that works too. Um, so obviously, the team packed up, went over to Dublin. I know your team didn't get to go check that out, I think, but that was a pretty cool event, right? DattoCon Dublin.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
what
it's
I said it before, I'm going to say it again. What a cool backdrop for a conference, that city. It's so awesome.
See, I think sometimes my wealth of travel background hinders me because, for example, I was in Sydney last year and I was doing the Sydney APAC event. So I did a couple talks there, and they're like, "Do you want to go to Dublin?" I'm like, "For sure." But I wasn't like, "Oh, I'm dying to go," because I've been to Dublin a few times, right? And I went there. I've had a great time in Dublin, and seeing your photos and seeing, going to the Guinness Brewery. I mean, I went there back in 2006 or 7, and it is one of the most fun experiences to have when you're in Dublin, like going to Temple Bar and seeing I think you posted a video of like the traditional Irish dancers or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was awesome. And I always love, and I always say to people when I'm out in the field talking, I'm like, go to one of our events or one of your events in a different city or a different country, because you can write it off as a business expense. You get to see a Dublin or a Sydney or an Amsterdam, and you not only get to see something cool, the vendors are going to throw some type of event that is so unique that you wouldn't get to do if you were a tourist.
It's true. And that's part of the game, right? Trying to create like a cool experience. So no,
Yeah.
it was really great. I really enjoyed it. And of course we got DattoCon Miami coming up.
Of course.
This is where Kaseya corporate exists, right? And I'm sure the Kaseya Center is part of the shebang.
It is. It's going to be part of the shebang. To be honest, I'm not sure yet if I'm going to be going. This is the thing, is that is our 1 month where I've got pretty much the most travel I've got for the whole year. I know I'm doing. Are you going to be up in Banff in Canada for the?
My other traveler here is having a baby, so I had to pick and choose.
Anyone I know?
Yeah, well, Mr. Stanners himself
over
here. So
I don't know if I actually knew that.
There you go. So I was like, I can't do a full like normal travel month, right? When you got half the people, like between me and him, we usually divide and conquer. So I'm not going to be able to hit that one up. I looks great. I heard it's a really cool area of Canada that like I would never go to probably on my own without some reason.
Yeah.
But I heard it's a real like kind of scenic spot, they said, but it takes a little bit to get there. But I said, maybe next time. I couldn't make it this time.
Yeah, I mean, I know we don't get a lot of big events up here. I mean, I got my one event coming up at the end of the month. We've got an ASCII event in Toronto, and we don't get a lot of events here in Canada for some whatever reason. And when I heard about this event, it's the place. You've seen pictures of it. It's the place with that blue lake that's so like, if you think of Canada and you see a picture of that blue lake, that's what Banff is. That's the place, Lake Louise, Banff, that whole area is like, on the postcard when you're thinking of Canada. And I know there's a ton of people coming to that, but I wasn't sure if you were going to make it up there for that one. So
I was really close, but like, I had to, like basically like slim down my travel for September, knowing that October, November are super busy, and like didn't sneak it in. But hey, listen, circle of life.
So when's he due? I gotta ask.
it's doing like it's supposed to be due on the 15th of September,
Sure.
but I think it's coming earlier if I had to guess. We'll
Well,
see.
I had my son September 29th last year, and we were due on September 25th. And we
Okay.
were 4 days late. So I'll have to reach out to him because we had many good nights together in Mexico back in early March, and I had no clue that he was expecting. So that's awesome. Sorry, I'll
Yeah.
just put my camera on and off here. It's this Canadian Wi-Fi. It's the dial-up. We probably have those beavers that cut into the ADSL cord last year, the year before. Did you hear about that?
I didn't, but I can imagine.
You did not hear this. This is the greatest Canadian story ever. It's there we go. I'm back. Small little town, about 16-hour drive from where I live.
Okay.
Beavers ate into the ADSL line, and the whole town of about 900 people lost internet for 4 days because beavers were making their dam.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Mother Nature doesn't stop for anyone, including the internet.
Exactly.
Wow. ADSL for 900 people. I can't imagine that's super fast.
Here it is. Here it is. Cable chewing beavers take out town's internet in uniquely Canadian outage. I'm gonna throw this in the chat so you can look at it later on.
That's funny. I'll have to definitely check that out. That's hysterical. I guess everybody's on the satellite Elon Musk net, right? They got the Starlink, right? That's popular up there, I assume.
It is in the small towns. I mean, like, you want to become popular, give everybody free internet. And I hear so many stories of these small little towns that just love Elon Musk because of that. And I hear there's so many towns all over the world. I mean, like, you want to make great PR, do that. You want to make bad PR, do what else he's doing, because I'm ready
to pay. I'm ready to pay for the Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg cage match.
I'm ready. I mean, I would love to see what happens. I mean, supposedly Zuckerberg.
They said it's on. They said it's happening.
I mean, I've read so many things about it. And I mean, supposedly Zuckerberg's training in MMA. I don't know what Elon Musk is doing. I know, he's not making any new friends with all the content he's making, but there you go. And the X, I don't know about that, but
overnight, he's like, I'm changing the name to X. I was like, that was a very fast change.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, if we look back in 10 or 15 years, we might say this is the weirdest period of a billionaire doing something. Like, I mean, imagine if Jeff Bezos just decided to call Amazon like turkey.com or whatever, or friendship.com. You'd be like, what are you doing? You created, or you have this brand. Like, what do you, I just, and I used to love him, and now I'm just a little bit like, okay, I don't know what's going on now.
Well, one thing is for sure, it definitely keeps it entertaining. No question about it.
Very much so.
Especially in big tech land, right? Where like every day is a new adventure.
Yeah.
So you were, right before we got on, we were talking about how, like, I don't know, take the MDF events aside for a quick second.
Sure.
Between the Kaseya and Datto teams that have now merged into one big group, it's like over 200 events, like in North America at least, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say 200 plus. And like, the one thing we've learned this past year is that with all these events coming, it's like, how do you decide what's the most important to be at and what's not? I mean, that's the thing that I'm finding. It's like, 1 week I'll be at an event, and we're still doing, like, I mean, myself, I'm still doing tons of online events as well. And, 200 in-person events, like, for example, today, in what do we got here? 2.5 hours, I'm doing our cybersecurity Jeopardy, which
Okay.
I actually had a few suppliers reach out to me, and you're probably like, I'm guessing you've never seen it, but I
haven't. Maybe I saw a promo on LinkedIn and I was like, what is this?
It's like, I dress up Alex Trebek style, and we run a full game board with everything, just like normal Jeopardy. And we bring on MSPs, and they get to battle it out for prizes. And all the audience comes on, and the audience gets a prize every 5 questions. And I had a couple of suppliers reach out to me recently, and I was thinking about you, and they're like, can we do a supplier one of these, like vendors? And I'm like, let me see if we can make that work, because that would be pretty neat. But I've got that today, so we're still going ahead with tons of in-person stuff, but we're also doing a lot of online stuff as well. I don't know what's going on with my camera here. I'm sorry about this, George.
No, it's okay. We'll keep that. We'll work with what we got, right? So, so that means you're on the road. What? 3 weeks out of the month? 2 weeks?
I mean, definitely 2 weeks out of the month for sure. Kind of our rule is we're on 2 weeks of the month, but sometimes that turns into 3, depending on how that goes. But I like it. I mean, obviously I do have a newborn at home, so I'm usually gone. Like tomorrow I go to Nashville. I'm gone for about 48 hours, then I'm back. And next week I'm going to St. Louis. Same thing. I'm gone for about 48 hours and back. But how much are you traveling currently?
Honestly, I feel like I try and keep it to 2, not 3. 3, I think, puts me into a trouble zone, but 2 definitely seems to be the average so far this year. We've definitely, like, once international reopened back up a little bit, like last year, kind of at the tail end it did. And then we definitely found ourselves overseas on the European side earlier this year. And like, we haven't really journeyed our way back down to APAC ever since the pandemic, right? So I assume that's going to come back into the fray. And like, I remember back in 2019, before, all the crap hit the fan, man, we definitely were circumnavigating, right? Like, we didn't have people in these other areas. We were getting on planes, flying all over the place. So really easy to hit your status when you're doing that, by the way.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm status with AC and United, but I want to get like the higher one. And it's like, I'm taking a flight tomorrow with WestJet because they actually have direct flights to Nashville, and like to get to the East Coast. Like, I cannot believe we have direct flights to Nashville, but we don't have direct flights to Philly. Like, come on. We know
that doesn't make sense.
It makes no sense, but I guess
I definitely, and I have this argument all the time with Stanners. I'm like, he's like, stay to one airline. I was like, I prefer the direct flights, and I prefer the direct flights at the times when I need them, rather than bouncing around for just giggles, right? And he's like, oh, you're never gonna get status. I was like, I have status with both American and United.
Yeah, well, I know last year I took one flight to Australia, and because it cost way too much money to do that event, I got status from that. I'm like, how does this work? You do one flight to Australia with United, you end up with status. And I mean, for me, I'm a big lounge guy because almost all of my my flights are connecting. Like, I don't have a lot of directs, which I would love. Like, if I fly to California or Vegas, I got directs. But so for me, like, to get that status, to get into the lounge, even if it's just to just sit down and relax, it's just kind of nice. And I have that Amex Platinum, which gets me into the lounge as well. But I think that's vital for my happiness, for sure.
No wonder you and Stanners get along. He's Mr. Lounge too.
Oh, he's a lounger? Yeah. There we go.
I'm like, I'm good. Give me a soda and, like, I don't know, some Twizzlers, and like, leave me alone. Just put me on the plane, right? He's like, nah, man, got to go to this lounge, this lounge, this lounge. I'm like, dude, there's a little crazy. You got like 80 lounges to get to.
Well, I know they used to have in LAX, they called it Lounge Corner, and there were 6 different lounges. And I remember with my priority pass many years ago, it got me into 4. And so I would always book layovers in LAX for like 6 to 8 hours, and you just go on a lounge tour. You go to New Zealand, you're eating your lamb. You go to Air France, you're having
this is like a lounge crawl.
Yeah, it's a lounge crawl. And I mean, if you had paid for this, you'd be paying hundreds of dollars, but included. I should be part-time hustling for lounge passes. I should be selling those on the side, I'd say.
You know what? Sounds like it could be a nice little revenue generator on the side. Be like, oh, you don't need Amex, you got miles.
Yeah. Miles the Lounge Master. Well, I'll tell you this, George. I was in my last life, in my last world. I traveled probably as much as you internationally. And I remember going to a lounge in, I want to say it was in Bolivia. And I showed up with this pass, and they were like, they had never seen this pass before. They're like, oh, they're like, what does it get? And I'm like, you have to open a lounge for me. And they went and got a key, and they opened this door, and I was the only one in there. They turn on the light. They're like, do whatever you like. And it had honestly been like probably a couple of weeks since they'd opened this place, and like all of the food in the fridge was stale. I grabbed I grabbed an Inca Cola, which is the local cola that's in Peru, which they obviously had in Bolivia. And I grabbed whatever I thought was semi-edible in the fridge, and then I flew right to Colombia, and I was in Bogota. And Bogota, one of the most beautiful lounges in the world. So it was funny. Like, I've been in Russia before, where you go in the lounges and you don't know what anything is that you're eating. You're just like, it's just mystery. It's like you try it and you just kind of hope and pray.
That's not good. Where's that translator app? Something's got
This was a few years ago, before Google Translate was widespread. I'll say that.
You got to roll around with like the Google glasses with the translate in real time.
Exactly.
Oh boy. Well, Russia. Wow. That was probably interesting. I mean, probably not going there anytime soon. Let's be honest.
No, I mean, I actually watched. I don't know if you're a Bert Kreischer fan. Do you know who that is? The comedian.
Yeah. The comedian. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he just had his movie come out called The Machine. I don't know if you saw that, because
I did not see that.
That's his go-to story that kind of made him famous, where he went when he was a student at, I think it was the University of Florida or Florida State. He went on a trip to Russia in the mid-90s with his college, and basically he got hooked up with the mafia there, and they robbed a train, and that was like his first story that made him go viral. And nobody really knows if it's all fully legit or not. And then in the past month, his movie came out called The Machine, which was kind of like a joke about that story. And I've actually done the same train ride that he did, where they robbed everybody. And it was a pretty wild train ride that I went on. And so he was there 10 or 15 years before me. So yeah, I could see how it could get a little bit crazy there, because Russia's a pretty wild place. I've been a couple times, and wow, yeah. Awesome people. But yeah, I don't think we're going to be going back there anytime soon. Any of us.
Yeah, it's a little bit crazy right now over there for sure. So talk to me about how that, like obviously MDF was a pretty big part of Datto's story, right? Pre-Kaseya.
Yep.
Sounds like you guys have quadrupled down. So like, I think like it's a pretty big team doing it now.
Yep.
Talk to me about some, I mean, obviously the St. Louis one coming up. I'm going to definitely hear about what happened there. Talk to me about how those are going. Like, what are the more interesting ones? Have they been working for the partners? Like, I'm curious if, Pete, like, because every year we hear it, like literally on autopilot. Oh, this MDF goes unclaimed. Like, people don't even realize it exists. Nobody goes to ask for it. So
yeah,
try and make sure people realize that it's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is getting exposure out there. So, I mean, any one of our partners who does business with us has the potential for us to give them some money to throw an event. And a lot of the time, the MDF events are just regular events. Maybe they're a lunch and learn, or bagels in the morning, or we'll give out some Uber Eats vouchers for them to throw an event for their partners or potential partners. But every once in a while we get events in person, either at the College World Series, at Busch Stadium. I know my boss Mike DePalma, he went down recently to the Kentucky Derby for an MDF event. So there's some incredible event possibilities out there, and we pick up the bill at the end of the day. So you have an idea, you want to go, say, I want to come to Philly, I want to go to an Eagles game. So maybe
I'm just going to invite you to Philly for an Eagles game on me. Forget the MDF, pal.
Yeah, but you know what? If we combine it up, because we're not competitors, right? We combine it up with a partner who wants to do an event and they want to bring out some clients. We'll fit the bill for them to put an event. I mean, I'm guessing a Philadelphia Eagles box is so expensive.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like, for the season, it's probably six figures, right? Let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
So we could definitely get tickets. I don't know about the whole box.
Yeah, and I mean, like, for example, I'm doing an event. Like I said, I'm going to be in Toronto later this month. We're going to take a bunch of partners out to a Blue Jays game. And that's not an MDF event, but it'll probably come out of the MDF funds, in the sense of we're doing it to our partners to bring either their partners or some potential new partners. So I know the one we're doing next week, the gentleman's bringing some of his clients that he currently has, and some new clients as well. So
Okay.
The MDF is neat, because it is whatever you can kind of think up in your mind, ideas wise, we can kind of make happen. And if our
where
partners
do people go and where do people go and even inquire about that? Like, do they just figure out who Mike DePalma is and send him a message on LinkedIn? Like, how does it work?
That's one way. They could obviously reach out to myself as well. But Jason Price and Taylor Thorson are the two people at our company who are, really spearheading the MDF world. So, if you don't know Jason Price or Taylor Thorson, reach out to me and I can do an introduction for you. Yeah, the MDF events are really neat. I mean, I'm excited moving forward. This is a big part of our business is, going out and doing something a little different because, that's why I've always admired you guys. I mean, when I heard about the All-American Rejects, were at your, what event was that last year?
That was we call it the MSP Block Party in Orlando.
Yeah,
it's around, the other big conference, but yeah, that's, one that we kind of dreamt up back in, I don't know, 2016, 2015, just kind of slowly got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally we were just like, we got to go crazy. Let's do something that will definitely be remembered.
Sure.
That plus the hurricane force winds that happened to happen during that event. And I guess the Orlando airport shut down, but it was still pretty cool.
Well, I remember specifically, I know I couldn't make it. I'm pretty sure Amelia was there. And you guys, I didn't know if it would even go ahead because I remember there was this hurricane force winds and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going to go on? This will be the first time this happens. And I just heard so many good things. And, anyone can do an event these days, but to actually, put some thought in it to get these incredible musical acts. I mean, I know that, what was that event in Denver a month or two ago where they had Nelly? Who was that?
That was PAX 8 Beyond.
PAX 8, so cool. Bringing Nelly out. I know DattoCon last year had Shaq DJing.
Yep.
I got the chance. I mean, I think when we first met was a couple of years ago in Vegas, and I got to have a good chat with Nick Offerman from Parks and Rec, and I got a bottle of whiskey, Canadian whiskey for him, and a bag of maple syrup bacon potato chips. And
whoa, time out. Maple syrup potato chips? Oh, bacon. I forgot the bacon. Maple syrup bacon potato chip. Who makes that? Hers?
It's a Canadian company. They're like, we're just doing this for marketing. But next time I see you, I'll bring a pack. They're not great. I'm not going to lie, but everybody bought them because they're like, this is something so different. I mean, poutine potato chips. I can get down with that.
Okay. I don't know if I would recommend cheesesteak potato chips, to be honest.
Cheesesteak flavored? I think that would be amazing.
I'd just rather have the real thing, man.
Well, yeah, of course. But if you can't and you're in an airport, you grab one of those, right? It's easy.
Yeah. Like somebody would come out with the mac and cheese potato chips. I was like, I'm not sure that's a good one.
No, I don't think that is a good one either. But if you can't have the real thing, you go for something else, right? So there you go.
Yeah. So all right. So you had the guy from Parks and Rec. Didn't you guys have? I didn't make it there, but you had George Costanza, right?
Yeah. So I'm still a little bit salty about that because I wanted to do a full interview with him, and my good friend Ted Roller got to do an introduction for George, and Ted was so funny because he put up a photo of himself and a photo of George, and just because of the angles, they looked so similar, and it was genius. And I'm like, you know what, Ted, very smart. And I would have loved, I always say, I'm like, guys, if you want me to introduce somebody, I'm happy to do it. So hopefully in the next year or two, they'll be like, Miles, we're giving you the reins. You get to interview Frank Abagnale. You know who that is?
Oh yeah, the guy from their actual real guy from Catch Me If You Can.
We probably got about 15 minutes with him after just to chat and chop it up. And he's so interesting. And, whether it's George or Jason Alexander or Nick Offerman, I mean, I actually want to say probably the most powerful speaker I ever saw at one of our events. There's a guy named Eric Weinheimer. Okay. And probably doesn't ring a bell to you. It didn't ring a bell to me until I obviously saw him talk. And he's the first man to hike I think it's the 11 highest peaks in the world. And you're like, wow, impressive. But no, wait for this, George. He did it blind.
What?
Yeah.
How?
Well, I mean, he obviously was walking with somebody. He wasn't.
Had to have been. That's crazy.
Yeah. And just hearing this story was it's great to hear George and some of your favorite celebrities speak. But actually, I think I was with you at conference maybe a couple years ago in San Antonio at I don't know if you were there. It was the Gosh, what would it have been? It was the first one after the pandemic kind of opened up.
Was it an exchange or CRM exchange?
Were you exchange in San Antonio?
I think I was there. Like they had exchange in San Antonio when the pandemic first came down. I didn't
2021.
make it to the one right after that, but they went back to the same venue. Yeah.
Okay, so that one we had. I mean, I don't know if you're a big movie guy like I am, but I'm a huge movie guy. And there's a movie called. It was about the SEAL team going into Benghazi.
SEAL Team 6.
No, that's a TV show.
Oh, okay.
The show is the movie has got Jim from The Office, war movie, and it was his first thing after The Office.
Huh.
It's called
I
13
swear I watched
hours.
it.
It's called 13
I
hours.
watched this movie. Yeah.
And so at that talk, they had the guy who Jim's character is. Like, so Jim's character is based off this actual dude who wrote the book. And he told story after story, and everyone's mouth was like you couldn't believe it. And I would say like less than a quarter of the people in that room had actually seen the movie, but I saw the movie like, a month before, and I was floored by it. So sometimes you don't need to pull up these incredible celebrities. If you have a speaker and they have a connection to you, that's just as powerful.
No, 100%. I mean, and like, it just seems like there's definitely a little bit of, I don't know, especially in the MSP space, event fatigue, right? Because there's
100%.
so many of them. You almost need to like create that ridiculous differentiator where somebody's like, yep, got to go out of my way to go do this because like that's a cool thing, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I feel like events that MSPs put on for their customers aren't as plentiful, right? Like they're not,
Sure.
I'm not saying they're not happening. There's just not as consistent. You know what I mean? Like if you really didn't have anything to do, you could literally be on the road every week of the year going to an MSP event.
Oh yeah. And I mean, we see people like, I would say, I know you travel a lot, but like someone like Henry Tim, he travels more than any human I've ever met. And, he has an MSP, right?
Yep. Phantom. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so
I don't know how it runs, but he has an MSP.
Well, yeah. And I mean, it must be doing well if he's traveling every week. Right. And I mean, he's on the road all the time. And I see some of these MSPs who travel a lot. I'm just amazed they can juggle both. Like I struggle with one job. I could not imagine doing two things at once, let alone, but there you go.
Yeah, 100%. So what are you hearing? So number one, shocked that you might not be at DattoCon in Miami, but what are you hearing about this event? I mean, this is the first time that they're doing it in Miami, right? Last year was DC. The year before was, oh, that's right. Didn't have it for like 3 years. And then it was like San Diego. So what's in store for Miami?
I've been given a little bit of info. And I mean, to be honest, I want to be there if we can make it work. That's my son's first birthday is that weekend. So that is a little bit tough. I'm definitely going to be in a doghouse of some sorts if I miss that, of course. And I also want to be there. And I'm not like some people who have intense FOMO. I'm happy to stay at home and do some work here because, seeing my little man grow up is pretty fun. And also I'm actually going off that week, like I said, to Can IT in Banff. That week we're going to be in.
It's the same week.
It's the week, but so DattoCon's the 2nd to the 4th. Can IT is the week before. But
okay.
A lot of people are going to be in town that entire week, hanging out in the mountains, doing that kind of stuff. So, and I know the week after I'm on the road, so it would be 3 straight weeks. So, we'll see if we can make it work without me getting yelled at. But I know there's going to be some great musical acts. I know obviously some outdoor stuff. I know Kaseya Center is going to be involved in some way. But the rest, to be honest, they don't want me coming on here and giving away all the secrets because they know that I'll be talking to you or talking to somebody in the industry. So they keep most of that stuff really tight-lipped. But I just know DattoCon, they know how to do their events. I know the one in San Diego a few years ago, I wasn't at it. I had just started. And that one was on was it the boat?
It was a carrier ship in the harbor. Yeah.
The carrier ship, not the one from Top Gun, because I was just in San Diego a week and a half ago, and I actually went to the house from Top Gun when I was in Oceanside, which was super cool. But that DattoCon event, yeah, I heard about that, and I was like, that is the coolest thing. Were you there?
Wow. Funny enough, I was on baby watch during that time. So
Okay.
I was on travel ban. I
Yep.
was told I was not to leave a drivable distance from my home, but no, I sent the crew over. We had our famous after parties on not one but two nights
Okay.
during San
Okay.
Diego. But I missed the carrier. That did look really cool.
Yeah, because I when I was there, I did a masterminds event there last year, and it was one of the first or second events after kind of COVID opened up in 2021, and I went and did the tour on the carrier. And honestly, if you're going to San Diego, if there's one thing you need to do, it's such an incredible thing, especially if you're like me and you grow up watching war movies. Like it is like going inside of U-571 or inside the Hunt for Red October or something like that. Like it was unbelievable.
Yeah, that I mean, I probably when they did Top Gun, I think they did an event on the carrier, like to launch it. It was like a red carpet style event to launch
Okay.
Top Gun 2. Um, I, it's literally like talk about cool backdrops, right? I said Dublin was a great backdrop for a conference. That's a
Sure.
pretty good. And by the way, not that many events are in San Diego these days.
No.
Beautiful place, but probably not the most least expensive place to do an event.
Yeah, no, exactly. I actually was at an event, a cybersecurity event there last year, and we stayed right in the gas lamp district. And that area is, I don't know how it's not more popular in the US. Like that should be, I think that's a top 5 destination for going out, good food, good drinks, and having a great time, all in like one area. Like you got Vegas, of course, everyone knows. You got Broadway in Nashville, but I mean, I can't think of a better area like to be in it. Like there's not
It's
many.
actually, yeah, it's pretty good. They got a pretty good setup.
Yeah,
I do find it really interesting that like the airport is literally in the middle of the city.
it's great. It's
Like you're
great.
walking down the street and like the airline, like they're landing, you're like, is that right? And then
Oh
all of a
yeah,
sudden, oh, there's an airport.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
100%. It seems like every day there's a new company added to the portfolio. Is there like 30 something now? I lost track.
We're
Uh,
we're we're actually around 40 now.
wow.
Vonahai is the newest one, which is pen testing. I'll be honest, I kind of have my swim lane, obviously my baby here, Graphis, but Vonahai it has been so neat, seeing the team behind them, what they actually do. I mean, I did not know a ton about pen testing because we weren't doing it. I don't know if you know much about pen testing or penetration
Only
testing.
because we have to do it every, more than once a year. I feel like now in order to like make sure that we're doing the right things. But um, I didn't realize how like there's automated ones, then there's like human led ones, and then there's a combination of like vulnerability checks, which are a little bit separate of just those two things. And then, there's also like external and internal, right? Because you can test from both directions.
Sure.
It can get pretty intense. And I would almost, if you're doing a lot of the compliances, I'm just speaking from memory here, so bear with me. If you're doing
Yeah.
a lot of the compliances, I know a lot of them now require at least an annual external pen test, right? Where they're trying to come in from the outside. I would say up until this point, MSPs likely didn't think about this avenue, right? Like because it
No.
wasn't a mandatory thing, but I think it's hard to avoid when you're talking about compliances for sure.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, lots of MSPs didn't even deal with it because pen testing costs the numbers I've heard, between 10 and 30 grand, depending on, how specific you want your pen test to be. And, now that we have Vonahai in the family, it's automated pen testing. And the one thing we're hearing a lot of is cybersecurity in 2024, cyber insurance in 2024 is going to be completely different than it is this year. I did a few videos on it earlier in the year about how cyber insurance is so much harder to come by. A lot of times the price is doubling, and everyone's going, well, what are we going to do? And now a lot of times they won't even give cyber insurance to at-risk companies unless they do things like a pen test, and they're making that mandatory. And so we're going to see a whole different landscape in 2024 when it comes to cyber insurance and pen testing, because you know what? These cyber insurance companies, they have paid out so much in 2022. And so far in 2023, they paid out a lot. So it used to be, if you're breathing, you could get a cyber insurance policy, and now they're treating it like a 19-year-old kid in America trying to get car insurance who has, a DUI and 5 accidents under his belt. It's not just going to be like, oh yeah, you pay the flat fee of $1,000 a year. No, you're now going to have to pay $5,000 if you want to do this. And we're going to see a whole different landscape for 2024 in that realm for sure.
Wow. Didn't realize, like, I knew things were ongoing, but you're telling me there's a big shift between 23 and 24, like they're revamping the whole thing.
So Zurich, which is one of the biggest underwriters of insurance companies in the world. I mean, we wouldn't, unless you spend a lot of time in Europe, which I know you do. You probably have seen that logo on a football or soccer jersey or something. And the CEO of Zurich came out and he said, we have obviously our separate businesses in every country. And, and he used tornadoes and hurricanes as an example in America. Like, we have so many clients who have tornado or hurricane insurance, and we can bank on, a 6% or an 8% of those clients actually having to use, their policies. And so they have, models set up for that, where they know 8% of our clients who have tornado insurance will have to pay out on. And he said that when it comes to cyber insurance, the numbers were so all over the map because they were so shocked how many people they actually had to pay out on, and they'd never done those formulas before. And that's why there's going to be a real big rejig, going forward, because at the end of the day, these insurance companies don't want to pay out. I'll give you one quick story, which will hit home. I was in Singapore in 2019, just before the pandemic. They lost my bag, and I've been waiting for someone to lose my bag because I've been paying for, travel insurance for years. And I want that $500 shopping spree that I get if they're more than 12 hours delayed. They're like, They're going to be here in 16 hours. I'm like, yes. Went out, $500 shopping spree, and I bought a whole bunch of new shoes, new clothes, and gave my receipts in. And it took them 4 months to pay back my $500. And they kept saying, oh, do you have another version of this receipt? Like, they were really just hassling me. I'm like, it's very clear. They asked for a credit card statement. They asked for all this stuff, and stuff that was kind of, bigger and beyond what I needed to give. And that's an insurance company named Manulife, which is one of the biggest, insurers in the world, top 10 insurance company. And they were paying me $500, and they made it out to seem like I was doing $100,000 claim here. And this just shows if they're hassling me for 500, imagine what those companies are going to say to smaller companies who want 80,000 or 20,000. And they don't want to pay out, and they're going to look at everything, and they're going to come up with any excuse they can. I've been hearing horror stories recently of companies where they'll have cyber insurance, they'll pay out, and then they'll do an external audit after the fact, and they'll find, one of those inboxes wasn't using MFA, and they'll claw back the money because they're like, you told us you were using MFA on every account, but maybe the operations manager or maybe a part-time contractor decided not to enable MFA, and that gave them an excuse to say you weren't using MFA. On like 300 inboxes, one person wasn't using MFA, and they're like, we're not giving you your $50,000 claim back.
That's ridiculous.
This is what insurance companies do. Like, they don't want to pay out if they don't have to. And, they've been writing checks now for the last 2 or 3 years, a lot. So we're going to see a big landscape change for sure.
Yeah, that's the one time where here's a good story for you. I went to London for an event, came back, and then like 2 or 3 days later, turned around, went to Sydney for an event.
Okay.
But it was like Philly to Dallas, Dallas to Sydney. Somehow I land in Sydney, and they're like, oh, your bag's not here. I'm like, okay. They're like, oh, it's in Los Angeles. I'm like, how did that happen? But okay. And they're like, here's $125 Australian, so you can give us some time to get your bag to you. I was like, oh, okay. $125 Australian doesn't go very far.
No, I know.
So I've amassed, after 5 days, I amassed a new wardrobe, that I bought one day at a time. And then I'm going to the airport. They're like, hey, we're about to deliver your bag to you. I was like, you might as well just stay there because I'm on my way to the airport. And then this was the first and only time, Miles, I went the other direction, right? I always used to come back to the States before I went back to Europe. Now I'm in Australia and I got to get to London. I take Etihad, who goes to Abu Dhabi from Sydney, and then from Abu Dhabi back to London, and they
Sure.
weighed everything. They're like, if you had like, one of the, like purses were weighed, backpacks were weighed. If you had a fanny pack, I bet you they'd weigh that too. And
Yeah.
like I gotta throw clothes away because like there's no way I'm gonna meet this weight limitation. They even weighed you, by the way. I don't know if you know that. Like you had to step on this thing. So
Okay.
anyway, like I guess like do I get charge extra if I needed to lose like a little bit of weight? But okay, all right. And by the way, that was the last time I ever took that, the Middle Eastern
That
route.
route. Yeah.
Because
Wow.
then after I got to London, I did my other event, and then I flew home again back to the East Coast, and I was like, that was 2 weeks.
Wow. Yeah. I used to do some pretty intense cross country travel, and I remember I did this. If we're going to talk about crazy stories, I was in Uganda and I was flying back to Toronto. I was living in Toronto at the time. And so I flew from Uganda to Kenya, switched planes, Kenya to Egypt. And we just had a stop in Sudan. They didn't even tell us. So I get up. I went to sleep on the flight. I get up and the stewardess is like, you do not want to get outside here. I'm like, why not? She's like, we're in Sudan. I'm like, oh yeah, no, you know what? I'll go back to my seat. And then we flew to Cairo, then Paris, then Toronto. And it was 37 hours. And by the time I got back, I was like, I had no clue what I was doing. I had no clue what time zone I was in. I could barely talk, like talking to the customs agent. He's like, do you have anything to declare? I'm like, I don't even know who I am right now. So yeah, doing those long.
But that response for customs probably wouldn't work well for me. I'm gonna be
No,
honest.
no, it wouldn't. But did you actually get to spend some time in Abu Dhabi, or were you just on a layover?
Just on a layover,
Okay.
and I was like, after like I didn't realize that. So you're clearly have done some of these exotic places. Like I've never been to Abu Dhabi or Dubai or anything like that. And like the second you get off the plane, like I'm going like, I don't know, 5 gates later. Nope, you got to go through security. And I'm like, I just got off a plane. Where did I go that I have to go through security? No, and the worst part was I had like a metal brace on my 2 fingers because this parking lot attendant had shut the van door on my hand and like broke my
Oh,
finger.
yeah.
And so like he made me take it off because I had to go to the metal detector. So I'm
Wow.
like literally like unwinding this like urgent care like brace on my finger so I can make it through the metal detector without it beeping. And I was like, this is not ideal, guys. Gonna be honest.
Yeah. Well, I'm very used to the flying where you get off the plane, just like you mentioned. And I often fly with duty free because there's nothing more enjoyable than turning up in a city, especially if you got friends there with a nice bottle of something from duty free. And how many times I've lost that because I'll connect. I'll be flying to somewhere in Europe and I'll connect through London or Dublin, and they're like, nope, you lose that when you go through security. I'm like, not like I bought it. You can see it's plastic. It's got zip ties on it. They're like, no, sorry. And there's nothing worse than losing that duty free, especially when you're going to a destination where you want to use it when you arrive. But
Yeah, so that's another thing you and Mr. Stanners have in common. I think he has like, I'm probably not doing it justice, like 400 bottles that he's amassed over his travels. And every time he has, and by the way, he has status, right? So he's like, I'm going to take that free checked bag and I'm going to make sure I use it. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
sure.
for sure.
And
Yeah.
I think his clothes disappears and the bottles reappear in their place.
Yeah, I don't have as many exotic bottles as I used to have. Like in my old place when I was a bachelor, oh, I had the greatest setup you could ever experience. But now, with the little man, not really as much. I'll have a couple of drinks when I'm out on the road with someone like you, but not as much at home
You'll
anymore.
have to bring it up next time you see him, but he has
Yeah, I
built a
will.
full-blown bar in his basement. It is
Where does he live? He's in Philly, right?
no, he's in like Albany area, like upstate New York.
Oh, okay. No,
So that's
sadly,
that's close enough to the Canadian border. You should be able to make that happen.
yeah. I can maybe make that happen for sure.
Yeah. Well, good news is you're going to be on the road, which is cool because like a lot of people don't get to travel and it's kind of getting expensive, to be honest. Like
Oh yeah.
all these prices seem to be going up noticeably. So that's pretty cool part of your gig, right? That you get to be out on the road. But I definitely feel like now that I have two, right? Small children, Yeah, got to balance the at-home time with the airplane time somehow, some way, and it doesn't get any better for me once the NFL starts because my Eagles end up on the agenda pretty quickly.
Well, that means every Sunday, you're busy, right?
Well, the home games are easy, right? Like leave at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, be back later on in the evening. That you can drive, right? The second you start,
Sure.
leaving airports, that's where the grumbling starts.
Have you been to many Eagles games on the road, or mostly just
Yeah, I think if I count them, like, because some of the stadiums have been, rebuilt, but I think I've been to like 18 of the 29 NFL stadiums.
what?
So every year I try and like get to a new one. So this year, I know I'm already going back to Tampa this year. It's like the second or third week of the season, but I've been to Tampa before. In the schedule this year is LA, although they're probably not going to be a very competitive team this year. The $5 billion stadium it is, should be, if I can sneak my way out there, check that out, see how
I got a hookup for you if you go to LA. Well, you probably know him. Good. Eric Simpson.
Yeah.
Eric Simpson has season tickets, and
Okay.
He went to the Super Bowl a few years ago, and he's telling me the story, and I was so jealous. And I love Eric. I know we often go out for In-N-Out burgers when I'm down in LA, and I said next time I'm in LA, I want to go to a game with you. And I would say the 3 stadiums I've been to, I'm in Seattle for a game. Have you been to Buffalo?
I haven't been to Buffalo. I had a chance to go a couple years ago, but it was like really bad weather.
Yeah,
and they're going to rebuild it now.
It's so much fun though because of the atmosphere. Like I'd done Seattle, Buffalo.
They light tables on fire and jump through them, man.
Oh, it's wild. And I actually tailgated in New Orleans, and we went to a game in New Orleans, and
New Orleans many a time.
That was tons of fun as well.
Yeah, that I don't know about that carpet though. Like after between New Orleans and between Arizona with the Super Bowl this past season, like I'm starting to like not. I don't know about the field, man. Like it's a little bit worrisome. Give me blacktop. I might be better off.
For sure.
Better than a water park. If I can't, like, had almost 80 sacks on the season, and like people are slipping like it, they're going on the slip and slide. Come on.
Oh, I know. I hear you.
Unbelievable.
I mean, they used to play games. They used to do preseason games for the Bills up at the Sky Dome, and that was on turf, and it was not very good for the players. I'll say that.
Yeah, we need to do away with this artificial field thing, but I digress. I'm definitely not, running the NFL, surely not making enough money to do that. But anyway, that being said, nice catching up with you, my friend.
Yeah, you too. Always
love people that are like out and about and, on the road. Cause, it does seem glamorous, but just to warn everybody out there that watches these and listens to these, is it's a lot more work than you think.
Well, here, I'll leave with one last story, George. I was in Omaha a couple of weeks ago, and because it was the College World Series, all the hotels were $700 to $1,000. I think I spent $500 on like the worst Marriott you could ever imagine. And as I was leaving Omaha, I was flying to Chicago, then Vancouver. And to get there, I'd flown Vancouver, Chicago, Omaha. So Vancouver, one of the best airports in Canada. Like top 5 in North America for like overall. Chicago, big airport. They know what they're doing. They know what they're up to. And I get to Omaha, and I had some baby powder in my bag because I just had a son, right? And we were traveling, and they pulled me over like, "Sir, you have baby powder." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I have my son." And I forgot I had it in my bag because I was going carry on. So they pulled me over, and they brought out the bomb squad. And if you've seen Omaha Airport, there's like, it's one room. It's like, a school gymnasium big, and everybody was looking at the little Canadian guy like I was a terrorist because they had the dog team. They had a guy mixing chemistry. And I'm like, this is baby powder. Like I've just been in Vancouver and Chicago. Chicago's one of the 10 busiest airports in the world. They're cool with it. But you guys think there's something sketchy with my baby powder for my son. And after an hour, they let me go, and they apologized, but the damage was done. And I, walked over to the Pizza Hut or the Godfather's Pizza with my head down, pretty disheveled. So there you go.
If that was me, I think I would have been disappeared for a while. Like an hour would have not been the case, but I'm glad it happened to you, Miles, and not me, pal.
I took one for the team. There you go.
That is, I try and keep those stories to a minimum. I try and like empty out my backpack. The worst, like I hate when I forget like a screwdriver or something, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, you can have it. It's all yours. Keep it.
Yeah, for sure.
Miles, appreciate you, my friend. For everyone that doesn't know you, I'm sure they can find you on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Who knows? You probably got it all.
For sure, definitely.
And if you haven't heard of MDF, drop Miles a message. And maybe if you're a transacting Kaseya customer, which I think a lot of people, I think most people are one way or another, you could back your way into some cool events there that you could do for your customers.
For sure.
Hopefully we'll see you on the road, my friend. Talk
Definitely,
soon,
George.
and catch you on the flip side.
All right, sounds good. See you soon.
Yeah, man.